I didn't feel joyful. I was scared, I was afraid, and it wasn't anxiety, it was panic. For decades, Goldie Hawn was the sound of laughter itself. Her smile symbolized warmth, optimism, and a kind of emotional safety Hollywood rarely offered. Audiences didn't just watch her films, they trusted her. She represented light in an industry built on pressure and chaos. To the public, she was America's sweetheart, someone who made happiness look effortless. But behind that glowing image, another story quietly existed, one she kept buried for years. Now, at 79, Goldie Hawn has finally chosen to tell it, not to shock, not to retaliate, but to speak a truth she once felt forced to protect. For all the joy she gave on screen, there were moments off-screen that reshaped her life entirely. Moments that taught her where power lived in Hollywood, and how easily respect could disappear behind closed doors. There were 6 men she promised herself she would never work with again. Not because of rumors or gossip, but because of how they made her feel in rooms where professionalism should have been automatic. For years, whispers followed her. They said she was difficult. They said she was greedy. They said she wasn't as sweet as she appeared. Goldie heard every word, and instead of fighting back, she made a different choice. Silence, distance, and denying access to anyone who crossed her boundaries. At the top of that unspoken list was Bill Murray. Not because of a long feud, but because of a single moment that changed everything. In the late 1980s, a studio comedy table read was supposed to be easy. Goldie's warmth paired with Bill's unpredictable humor looked perfect on paper. Executives were relaxed. The mood was playful. Until Bill arrived nearly an hour late, loud, unapologetic, and dismissive. He dropped into his chair, tossed a coffee cup onto the script, and announced the room could finally begin. People laughed. Goldie didn't dawdle as the reading started. Goldie was prepared, focused, and professional. Midway through a scene, Bill interrupted, hurt, leaned back, and smirked. "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" The room laughed again. Not nervously, but approvingly. Goldie closed her script, stood up, and walked out. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. The silence did the work. The next day, she withdrew from the project completely and never looked back. Later, she explained it simply. "He thinks chaos is genius. I think it's exhausting." That moment changed how she navigated Hollywood. She stopped tolerating dysfunction disguised as brilliance. She chose peace over prestige and never reconsidered that decision. Years later, when asked if she would ever work with Bill Murray again, her answer was calm and final. No dot. Then there was Warren Beatty. This story began with a refusal. In the late 70s, Warren Beatty was Hollywood royalty. When he showed interest in Goldie, the invitations came quickly. Dinners, private parties, quiet visits. Goldie declined, politely and firmly. She didn't embarrass him or spread rumors. But rejection didn't sit well with him. Scripts she'd been promised quietly disappeared. Meetings were canceled. One producer eventually warned her that Warren was calling her difficult and uniserve. It wasn't public. It was calculated. A slow erasure carried out through influence. Goldie saw it clearly. Years later, she explained it in one sentence. He doesn't handle rejection, he punishes it. She never confronted him publicly. She let time expose everything. At an award show years later, Warren greeted her warmly, as if nothing had happened. Goldie smiled politely and turned her back mid-sentence. No explanation. Just closure. The third name shocked many people. Dustin Hoffman. Revered as a genius, his behavior shattered that image for her completely. During an early audition, he treated the room like a test of dominance. He mocked her instincts, questioned her choices, and spoke down to her as if she were a student. It wasn't critique, it was control. Goldie left that room, changed. She understood that brilliance didn't excuse cruelty. Years later, when she was invited to read opposite him for a dramatic project that could redefine her career, history repeated itself. Halfway through the reading, Hoffman stopped the scene, turned to the producers, and said flatly, "She's still playing it like a sitcom." Goldie didn't react. She finished the scene calmly, thanked everyone, and walked out. The next morning, she told her agent she was done. She never worked with him again. Chevy Chase was next, and this one hurt differently. They were supposed to be friends during the filming of Foul Play. Chevy constantly disrupted scenes, rewrote dialogue without permission, and sulked when Goldie landed bigger laughs. If the spotlight wasn't on him, tension followed. One night after another. Argument. Chevy stormed off set and refused to return unless the script was rewritten to his liking. Goldie sat quietly outside afterward and whispered to her stylist, "He's not funny, he's just mean." When the studio later pushed for a sequel with a massive paycheck, Goldie didn't hesitate. She declined. Though money was worth revisiting, That environment. Then came Sean Penn in 2014. At a charity gala where Goldie spoke about mental health, he openly mocked her from his table. When she finished speaking and received applause, he smirked and said loudly, "She should stick to giggling." Goldie smiled, left early, and later said quietly, "My whole career, and I'm still reduced to giggles." From that moment on, she refused to attend any event where his name appeared. Not anger, finality. The last name surprised almost everyone. Kirk Douglas. At a panel discussion, he greeted her warmly, complimented her appearance, and repeatedly interrupted her, finishing her thoughts and reclaiming the spotlight. It wasn't loud, but it was constant. By the third interruption, Goldie shut down completely. Afterward, she said to a friend, "He talks to me like I'm still the blonde in a bikini scene. I've won an Oscar." She never confronted him. She simply removed him from her world. She remained respectful toward his family, but Kirk Douglas no longer existed in her professional life. He never knew he was on her list. That was the consequence. Goldie Hawn's silence was never weakness. It was strategy. She didn't expose anyone. She didn't retaliate. She observed, decided, and walked away. Behind that famous smile was a woman who knew exactly when to leave the room. These moments weren't misunderstandings. They were lessons, and they shaped how she survived and thrived in Hollywood without letting anyone rewrite her worth.